spinning, broken rule. Hound dog howling, bullfrog croaking. Everything is broken.
Hi, and welcome to Dad's Divorce Live. I'm Matt Allen, editor of DadsDivorce.com. With us today is Kenneth Pangborn. Kenneth is the founder of the ATeam. It's a group made up of trial consultants, lawyers, psychologists, doctors, and investigators that help those wrongly accused of, among other crimes, child abuse, domestic violence, and rape. First off, Kenneth, thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Would you briefly describe the ATeam and how it came about and what inspired you to form this group?
Well, the inspiration was going through a rather ugly divorce about 35 years ago and having to fight for custody, which was not one of the things I looked forward in my life to having to do. Mm-hmm. And finding the system at that time in the 70s to be highly stacked against fathers. It seemed that women could do no equal, and you had a thing then called the tender years doctrine, which basically said no matter what, children of tender years, meaning generally under 15 or so, always had to go with the mother, almost totally regardless of her treatment of the children. That's no longer the case in written law. It's still very difficult for fathers to get custody, and the biggest impediment is actually the legal services that men obtain. Most lawyers are either philosophically opposed to men having custody or incompetent to put together a winning custody case for fathers. The ATeam was formed in response to that to help marshal the resources to help deserving fathers obtain custody.
And in the 35 years since, or 34 years since you started the ATeam, how have these types of cases changed in the courtroom?
They've changed in that evidence that would not have been accepted 30 years ago is accepted today. There's much more reliance on expert testimony and those type of things. You know, the dad just needs to be smart in not allowing the biases in the system to destroy them before they get a chance to fight. For an example, most lawyers will go along with court-appointed psychologists to do evaluations. The problems with that is you get basically one of two types of people who do these evaluations. The first type are basically the court hangers-on, the court professionals who do that, and they're usually pretty strident feminists and anti-father. So getting a fair evaluation of one of the court evaluators is unlikely at best. The second approach is where the attorney for the father and the attorney for the mother each present three names to pick from. The problem with that is most attorneys don't know who the really good people are. The second problem is that the people who are proposed are generally bottom-of-the-barrel type of individuals, and they're not real good at being able to back up if they do favor the father. They can be easily picked apart on the witness stand. So fathers are basically damned if they do and damned if they don't. Fathers can win, but the first thing that a dad needs to understand is that it's going to be bloody expensive to win, to have a good chance of winning. You can lose cheap. Losing is free. Mm-hmm. But to go into a courtroom and expect to have a good prospect of coming out with custody, you're going to have to spend some money. The simple fact is that even though the written bias against fathers is gone, the practical bias, the societal belief that children just naturally belong with mothers, persists.
Well, how do we fight that? How do we fight those biases?
Well, the way you fight it is by spending the $50,000. I mean, if we're going to talk realistically here, you know, a lot of guys get built by attorneys who say, "Oh, give me $2,000 and I'll fight your case for you." They get the $2,000, and pretty soon they need more. And usually those guys wind up costing more than the ATeam does, and they lose. The point is that what fathers need is honesty up front. It's going to tell them how it is, without all the shucking and jiving that they get, with the big talk, I'll go out and fight for you. And then it never turns out to be that way. There are some good attorneys around the country. For the most part, we know who they are, and they're the ones that work within our program. We put together winning cases. We've literally helped over the last 30 years, without an accurate count, probably thousands of dads win custody.
Now, I hear a lot from our readers about those type of false allegations of either domestic violence or, you know, like you were mentioning, you know, alleged sexual abuse of children.
And marital rape.
And marital rape, right. Are these, it appears these allegations are false, I guess, just levied to help or make the fathers seem like unfit parents or sort of monsters who shouldn't be trusted around their children.
It's often an act of desperation, often really an act of wishful thinking, if you will, on the part of the women, because most of the time these are made. I mean, you have to understand that normal women don't do this, even when the allegations are true.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing that you need to understand is a normal woman does not accuse her ex-husband, the father of her children, of sexually molesting them. She doesn't want, even when true, she doesn't want the world to know that. They have other ways of handling it. You have to understand it's a particularly deficient mother who does that. And she does it because she's afraid that if the truth comes out within the divorce and custody case, she'll lose her children, and she doesn't want to do that. So she grabs whatever weapon she can, and certainly the women's movement has encouraged the use of false allegations. There have been a couple of publications. One was a thing called the Mother's Child Custody Combat Manual, which encouraged women to make false allegations and basically gave them instructions on parental alienation and how to enlist the child and how to fool professionals in the system with the allegations. And we've had too much willingness within the system to just believe these allegations.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Is there any last thoughts you wanted to leave us with?
You know, never try to fight a custody battle unless you have to. Never try to do it on the cheap.
All right, great. Well, that was Kenneth Pangborn with the ATeam. You can find out more about him and his group at www.a-team.org. This was the edited video interview you just watched, but for the full version, please click on the podcast link on the left side of the homepage. I'm Matt Allen with DadsDivorce.com, and that does it for this edition of Dad's Divorce Live. We'll see you next week.
Broken pipe, broken tube, people bending, broken